What's up YouTube? Mike here with another video, and today I wanted to give my review of the iPad mini 6. So let's get into it. Okay, so this is going to be a quick down and dirty review. I bought this on launch day with my own money. I got this, so it's been over 2 weeks now, so whatever day it came out exactly. But I pre-ordered this, and this was honestly the device I was most excited for from Apple this year. I mean, all the rumors have been pointing toward this kind of a design, and I'm honestly super happy that they did this design. I mean, it's basically an iPad Air that they shrunk down, but it's just perfect. The actual footprint is smaller than the original, but the screen is bigger. So first, let's go over the specs real quick. Like I said, this has been out for a couple weeks, and a lot of reviewers on day one, they miraculously did a complete review of this without really having to spend time with it. But the hardware, as you can see, is awesome. It's the typical aluminum build. I went ahead and got the purple model, and you can see it's an 8.3-inch display. It's got USB Type-C. It's got speakers all around. The cameras are pretty good for what they are, 12 megapixel. And of course, the addition of this is it's got a magnetic side where you can get the optional Apple Pencil 2, and it just magnetizes on the side and charges. But if you compare the hardware of this to the original, which really kept the same form factor since the iPad mini 1. It is just a drastic design, looks modern, futuristic, and I've got to say the design, aesthetically, I love it. Now, as far as this hardware goes, there's only really one negative. Now, during Apple's event, if you watched it, they really targeted this toward pilots. They actually showed it using ForeFlight, which is an aviation app. But if you're going to market this to pilots, then you really should have fixed the problems with the original. Now, I fly with an iPad mini almost every day at work. We use them at work. It's the iPad mini 5. And really, the only issue I have with that is the screen brightness, which on this is 500 nits, and on the iPad mini 5 is 500 nits. So they didn't increase it. So if you're going to market this to pilots, now I fly helicopters, and the helicopters that I fly have what's called a greenhouse, which is essentially the windows over top of me. So on a bright sunny day, the sun is blasting down, and when this is sitting on my knee, it can be very difficult to see the screen. So in order to see the screen, I actually have to cover it and shade it like this. So I really wish Apple would have increased the brightness on the screen. Now with the iPhone 13 Pro series, the screens go well over 1,000 nits. I think it's like 1,200 nits brightness, which is awesome for when you're in direct sunlight. So that is really the biggest complaint hardware-wise with this device. And honestly, it's the only complaint that I have on the hardware with this. The rest of my complaints come down to the software itself. Now, talking about the software of this, it comes down to, in my opinion, laziness of Apple. But this has iPad OS 15, which is the same OS as, of course, is on the iPad Pros, which are a lot larger. And if you look at the screen, this has been one of the #1 complaints by other reviewers is the scaling. As you can see, there's all this wasted space around it, and it also translates when you're actually using apps. Now, I've went into the settings, I've put everything to large, bold icons, all that stuff, and it hasn't really affected anything except for specific Apple apps like the email app. So the scaling on this is just horrendous. Now, day one of setting this up and using it, I almost returned it. So I was on the fence multiple times wanting to return this, and it's all because of the scaling. Apple needs to get off their ass and stop being lazy and just fix the scaling of this. Simple as that. Now, if you ignore the scaling, I mean, it's an iPad through and through. The performance on this is fantastic. It's got the newest chip, A15 Bionic Super, whatever the hell they call it. But it's got the newest chip, and it definitely shows in the performance. Now, when it comes to battery life performance, that's where it's a little bit of a disappointment. I mean, it'll get you through a full school day, full work day, but I would have liked to have seen more battery. And a lot of folks have complained about this only having a 60 hertz refresh rate on the screen. Personally, I don't care about that. I don't notice the difference between 120 and 60 when I'm using a tablet or a phone. That's just me. I don't play games when it comes to on a mobile device, whereas probably where you're going to notice the most, but I honestly, my eyes just don't really see the difference, so I don't care about that. But I do wish Apple would have included it on here for the simple fact that it is a huge battery saver the way Apple does their 120 hertz trying to remember the stupid fancy buzzword they use, but essentially it goes up and down based on what you're doing. So for instance, right now it's just static. It's stuck at 60 Hertz, even though I'm not doing anything. But if it was the dynamic refresh, then it would clock down to all the way down to, I think, 10 is what they do. But that honestly has a tremendous savings in battery when it is able to do that. So that's why I would like to have an adaptive refresh rate on here, just simply to increase the battery life. But other than that, I have been using this thing literally every day for the last 2 weeks. And like I said, I'm coming from an iPad mini 5, which I loved. This is honestly my favorite tablet that Apple makes. So I love iPad minis, and I think they hit a home run when it comes to the physical design of this, with the exception of I would have liked the adaptive refresh rate. But that aside, once they, or if they fix the scaling on this, this in my opinion is going to be the perfect device. Now the pricing on this, I do think kind of sucks, especially with the base model. I mean, this starts at $499, of course, plus your tax, but that is only with 64 gigabytes of storage. Now, 64 gigabytes in 2021 to me is kind of an insult. I mean, even with the iPhone 13s, the base storage is 128, which I think is more than fair and more than adequate. So if they would have had the base storage of this be 128 gigabytes, then hands down, I would recommend this first time, every time. But with 64 gigabytes, you're going to want to bump up to the 256, which again adds $150. So that's taking you up to $650. And again, you don't really need this. I mean, if you want to use it, great, but this thing itself is like 130 bucks. So if you're buying just the tablet, again, 256 gigabyte model, you're looking at about 650 bucks. And of course, if you want the cellular, you add $130 to whichever one you decide to get. Now, this is the Wi-Fi only, again, 256, but I think for that price, I mean, I don't know. I think they would have been better off pricing this a little bit lower, but it is Apple, so you're paying the Apple tax. But me, personally, with the exception of the scaling, I love this device. So my return period is already passed, so I'm definitely keeping this. And, you know, I'm planning on, with Apple, I mean, they support their devices for like 5 years, which is fantastic. So I plan on definitely keeping this. I still use it every day. As you can see, I've got a matte screen protector on here to kind of cut down on the glare a little bit. And also it gives the pencil a little friction. And also a hardware change that I forgot to mention on this is it's got magnets incorporated all along the back. So this is not the Apple version, but it's just a little smart cover that I got on Amazon. But the cool thing is you just use the magnets and it just literally magnetizes on. And they're pretty strong. And this one is designed to, you know, have a thing where I can set the angles. But I don't recommend you buy Apple simply because they're overpriced. I mean, this is a little Chinese knockoff I got on Amazon. It was 20 bucks or less. If I remember, I'll post a link, but if you buy the Apple one, you're just paying that Apple tax. So I absolutely refuse to buy any Apple accessories because they're just so garbagely overpriced. And you can literally get clones pretty cheap on Amazon and just save yourself literally more than 50% of the cost of what you would pay for the Apple accessories, but just something to think about. But this is a simple review. I'm not going to show a bunch of fancy B-roll and just, you know, wow you and complain about the jelly scroll issue, which is stupid because you're only going to see that if you're doing this really fast and if you're watching it back in slow-mo. So it's kind of ridiculous. But honestly, I've not noticed it. I don't care. So if you're concerned about that, don't be. Just get it, check it out. But with that, if you have any specific questions on this, make sure you drop it in the comments below. I'll try my best to answer it, but just the form factor of this, I love it. I know I'm still in the honeymoon phase, but if Apple does get off their butts and fix the scaling issue with an update, then this will absolutely be the iPad to get. So I honestly would recommend this over the iPad Pro, but it depends what you're going to do with it. If you're going to use this as an input device, i.e. you're going to be typing, then yeah, you're going to want a bigger canvas. If you're going to be doing a lot of drawing, you're probably going to want the bigger canvas. But if you're using this as a consumption device, study device, or if you're a pilot like me and want to use ForeFlight on it, this is perfect. So definitely recommend it. But as always, I appreciate you guys for watching. I've been on a bit of an Apple kick lately, so I've got the iPhone 13 Pro. I've got the Apple Watch 7, which is going to be showing up sometime today. And of course, I'm still rocking my M1 MacBook Air. So I've entered that Apple ecosystem. I'm probably going to do a video about it, but want to try it out for at least 6 months to a year to see if, hey, what all the hubbub's about. So this is the first time I've been all Apple for a very long time. So the iPhone I definitely want to do a video on it because it's the first iPhone I've owned for probably 3 years. So anyway, again, appreciate you guys watching, and I will catch you in the next one.